Hello, my name is Dan Humberg and I'm with harvestfires.com. Um, if you're watching this video, you're probably looking at adapting the tin set from a Firestop kit for a Case Model 9250 combine and adapting it from the earlier years, probably 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, to the machine that they came out in the model year 21 or possibly later than that. Um, the in 21, Case put an insulation blanket, a kind of a crimped aluminum blanket, around the flapper valve or choke that follows the turbocharger. That used to be separated from the control box underneath it by a space of about a quarter of an inch, and the two are connected with some bolt posts or whatever. Now the insulation blanket pretty much joins those two components together. So we need to modify the tin if you're going to move it from an older combine to a newer to the newest combine. We are currently looking down at the assembled tin. Everything is shown except the top, the big top piece. I've taken that off or hidden it so that we can look at this in the CAD model. If we look down inside here, this rectangular opening is where we have to make some cuts. Actually, this shows the cuts made to it that should accommodate that change in the system. Now I'm looking down on the top here. There are three parts that need to be affected by the modification. And I can show you those. It's probably easier if we look at the bottom view. So I'm going to flip this over. There we're looking at the bottom of the enclosure. And if I put the cursor on this part, it'll highlight the borders of it. I forget the part number. It might be something like 18, I think. But that it's kind of, I call it the bottom tray. It slides in horizontally between the exhaust system and that control box. Um, and you can see it here. You'll pick out which part it is pretty easily from your set. The second piece is this chunk in back. It's got a couple of bends in it. There, we highlight it that way. It's got a flat bottom piece or a bottom bend here, and then this back part, and then it's got a little uh, bend here out on the side to connect it over there to the other piece. I forget the part number on that one as well. And then we've got this part that's dark blue here that's on the side of the turbo box, highlighted right there. And that piece, I think that piece is number 10, but I'm not absolutely sure. Again, those are the three pieces that are gonna be affected by this. I would suggest you find those three pieces and assemble them on the bench. Line up the screw holes up here and maybe over here that connect those, and actually put them together so that you have an assembly of those three pieces. Once that's done, we can go back to the top here and look at this. The piece we're going to cut, or the chunk we're going to cut out, is to follow this. There's this edge is already established in the existing part. You're just going to use that edge and you're going to come down here and cut across the bottom. I think it's just below. There's a couple of slots cut out here in the original part, and it's going to come across just below those. I can't tell you exactly how far below here. I think it's about 1/8 of an inch, but I'm below the bottom slot. But I'll show you a way to figure it out here in a minute as to how much to trim. And then we're going to cut up into the top piece here that's highlighted. Again, from this same edge where there's already a cut made, we're going to follow that up and go back in here and cut. I just rounded the corners in here, but you don't have to round the corners. And cut across here. And we're going to cut across just beneath this hole, screw hole here. It's actually less than the diameter of the screw hole, so it's probably about 1/8 of an inch at the most below that screw hole. And you could lay this out with a ruler and a Sharpie marker on your tin before you cut anything. So you're going to go straight up from this cut that's already existing in here, the edge of this little slit. You're going to go straight up there, and we're going to go straight across, just maybe 1/8 of an inch, 90 degrees, right across below that hole. And then we're going to come over here and come down this side, and I'll show you a way to measure those. So we established this side with that cut. We established the top side of the cut with this hole and being really close to it, but not on the hole. Um, and I can go here and measure the distance between these two sides from there to there, and it tells me down in the corner here that's 5.125. That's 5 1/8 of an inch from here over to this one. So you could draw that part of the rectangle on there, 5 1/8 an inch over from this edge. And then the distance from up here to down here is measures here 3.443. Well, that's about probably about 3 7/16 of an inch, 3.443. So you can lay it out as decimal if you want, or uh, 3 7/16 would be really close to that. From this edge here that we're going to cut down to the bottom of this opening is 3.443 inches. Now, what's not shown here is I didn't cut out the blue part in this one. Well, I actually did in mine, but I'm having trouble getting that part to show up in the assembly with that cut made. So rather than show it, just draw it in there and cut on the bottom tray part. You're going to cut across here and up here to the top edge, or right through to the top of that piece. You're going to cut this little rectangular cut out of that piece that's in the back up here, and then out of this blue chunk we're also going to cut this kind of rectangular chunk out. So even though it doesn't show it cut out there, you're going to cut that out and you'd have an open rectangle here in those three pieces that measures 5 1/8 across here and 3.443 inches across this way. And if you do that, when you go to put the pieces on the combine, we should be able to slide this tray piece underneath or between kind of around that connection between the choke on the exhaust system and the actuator box underneath it. Now, if you find that it won't go, that it's still too tight, you can cut a little bit off of either side of it. My suggestion would be that you try it first. Oh, and by the way, this blue piece, the cut you make in that is actually, you don't actually cut that out here. You cut over here and up this way all the way to the back end of that piece. So that piece can also slide in underneath here when you assemble it. You'll find if you don't that the chunk you didn't cut out back here won't want to go around this thing. So you cut in from here over to here and then cut all the way back up to the end of that piece. So then when we put it together, you can put probably the blue piece goes on first, and then later you slide this, put that back chunk in there, and then you slide this one in, and then you put the screws through to hold those all together. The assembly process probably isn't really any different than the video that you watched to put the original tin on. It's just that we need to cut this out so it'll slide around that aluminum jacket that they put on there. And again, if it fits too tight, you can try and figure out, is it tight on the left? Is it tight on the right? And open it up either direction. I would probably tend to look at the left side first here rather than along this. I think this cut here was made to go to the right of where that box is, and so probably shouldn't encounter the blanket there. But if it was too tight here, you'd cut a little notch in here and cut that out up this way. If it's too tight on this side, you'd cut a little farther in both this piece and the blue one to the left and cut that out of or cut up and through those parts up to the back edge of those parts. So that's what I would suggest as the attempt to adapt the tin from 9250, that's earlier than the model 21 year, to the actual 21 year model of the case 9250. There's a video, I have a video for the 8250 as well. It's very, very, very similar to this, but the parts are just slightly different. So I'd use this one for the 9250. So call me if you have trouble with that, if it won't, if this won't work for some reason, but you should be able to do that. And again, if you end up with holes that you think are too big, you can tighten it up with some of that aluminum foil tape. My suggestion would be back in this area where that actuator arm comes up through, put it on the machine, and when you have it on there, then look at where that actuator arm comes up through there. And if it's got a big gap on one side of it, then put a piece of that aluminum foil tape across there right alongside that so that it closes up that and doesn't let a lot of air dump out there You can also put ones this way if it's too wide a chunk out here for that, but you just don't want to restrict the motion of that actuator arm, but you would like to fit fairly close to it so we don't lose a lot of air around that. So those are the adaptations I would make for the model year 219250. Call me if you have trouble. My number is on the website for harvest fires, um, and hope that works for you. Hope you have a safe harvest once you get it on there. Thanks very much. Bye.